from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. My name is Mehmet, and in each episode, as you know, I cover different topics from emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, AI, cybersecurity, digital transformation, quantum computing, and also at the same time, recently I'm doing more interviews with subject matter experts, startup founders, and entrepreneurs. And here today I have Geric, who is joining me. Geric, I would let you tell the audience where are you joining from and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mehmet. I'm happy to be here. And I'm calling in from the Philippines, though I'm originally from the USA. My base is here in the Philippines. And I'm a AI futurist and CEO of Valhalla.team. At Valhalla, we specialize in working with purpose-driven tech companies, helping them build out their development teams and their products while leveraging the power of AI. You could say our expertise lies at the intersection of AI, IQ, and EQ.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, in the first place, how did you first become interested in AI and what led you to become an AI futurist?
So I think it all started when I was quite young, as most things do. There was I was thinking about this guy. I get this question asked normally, and in the very beginning, my answer was kind of flat. Of like, I don't know. It just was always obvious. Like it was the thing. I don't know what sparked it. But I think it started, same way that a lot of us kind of nerds get into things. It started with sci-fi, started with the books we read, and there was a book, Recursion, and the more I dug into this idea of building intelligence from scratch, the more I started to obsess over it on pretty much every level you can imagine, because it strikes me as a very grand project that is really at the very tip of the iceberg of everything that it means to be human for the last many thousands of years. Where it's pushing the limits of our hardware, it's pushing the limits of our philosophy, it's pushing the limits of our ethics, it's pushing the limits of our industry, and it's all coming together in a way that just makes right now a very exciting time to be alive. And so I've been obsessing this for as long as I can remember.
It looks like a long, I would say, obsession. I can see this also, Geric. Now, from what you are seeing, what is the current state of AI? And because you mentioned you work with a lot of your customers to see how they can implement this. So what do you think the future holds in terms of, future of business and the impact on society?
Yeah, there's a fantastic quote of the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. So a lot of incredible innovations have arrived, and I think where entrepreneurs are going to be making a lot of money is the same way that they've always made money, which is they're going to be on the cutting edge, and they're going to be playing arbitrage with the future. They're going to be figuring out where the puck is going, and they're going to be moving there first. And when I'm advising companies into thinking about how to predict, what's going to be happening with AI and where it's going, there's quite a few models I give them, but one that I want to share here to get started with is that the closest analogy of where we are at right now to history, because that's always a good foundation to get started with, is at the turn of the 20th century as electricity was being distributed throughout civilization. So think of Thomas Edison and the light bulb. Think of the power grid throughout Europe, throughout throughout the West, where the transformation meant that any technology that we had before, we could add power to it through the form of electricity. So a hammer became a jackhammer. A carriage became a car. Originally, the first cars were electric. A screwdriver, became a power tool, so on and so forth. And what we're doing right now is something similar, where at this point we are adding intelligence to just about anything that you could imagine.
Mhm.
And because the intelligence at this point has gotten advanced to the point where it can emulate human communication, literally the answer is that like everything is going to be changed. So what I suggest people to be thinking about is to be taking their subject matter expertise, and this is same with most innovations, right? Is to take your subject matter expertise, takes what you find unique, what makes you unique, and to figure out how AI is going to be entering into it. How is what you're going to be doing going to be augmented by it? And if that is a little bit too broad, then the way that you break it down is you think through some sort of value added chain. I'm going to assume that you either are an entrepreneur that has a business or are going into a business, and so you break down that value chain of what that business would look like or what that process is, and then think through every step of that value chain is both adding value, but it's also subtracting value because costs accrue, friction is added, miscommunications could be added, but also theoretically value is added. So in e-commerce, there's a point where they see the advertisement and they click on it, then they put in the order button, or so on and so forth. At every one of those stages, you can add in different forms of AI to increase the efficiency and decrease the costs. And I guess I'll leave it there for now. I think there's also some interesting comments about what are the recent innovations in AI and what's coming down the pipeline, but I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, we will come back there, but just being the devil advocate here, right? So someone might say, because you mentioned a very important I would say phrase there, and you said it's like the moment is here, and you did the similarity with previous things. Now someone might say, Geric, but the AI is not a new concept. AI has been with us now for some times. Why now all the hype is happening around AI? Is it because the generative AI, what we are seeing with tools like ChatGPT from OpenAI, Bard from Google, Midjourney, and all these tools, like why the hype happened now and not before? Knowing that, and I covered this in one of my episodes of the history of AI, the concept goes back to very old times, and in computing, I mean, in modern ages, it started in the 50s, in all this movement that happened in the universities across the US. But why now is the moment of AI?
So in my opinion, that there is a certain level of arbitrariness to it because the technology that underpins a lot of the recent gizmos and things that are being distributed to the masses through Bard, ChatGPT, etc., were based on an innovation in 2017 from a paper called "Attention is All You Need," which was kind of a precursor paper to the Transformer. And so the Transformer it's a fairly technical concept that was an innovation onto our existing understanding of how to use neural nets and how to use machine learning. And the fundamental, well, actually, I'd be very curious, Mehmet, if you're familiar with Transformers, what your perspective would be on what they added to the game. But from what has been impactful for me about Transformers is that they unlocked a much greater degree of parallel processing, amongst other things, which basically meant that we could do horizontal scaling with our machine models in a way that we couldn't do before. So all of a sudden, it became a lot more tenable for us to consume 10% of the internet in order to create a model like GPT 3.5, which was the Chat GPT, and it's billions of tokens or however many it was. So the transformers had a lot of innovations. That was one of them. Another was that it transformers allows you to chunk a piece of input data, and to, as you consume that input data, to tell its context. So what I mean by that is the original paper, "Attention is all you need," was focusing on how to translate languages. So the example it gave was from French to English, and various phrases in French, will have different sentence structure. So it's not a one-to-one, translation. You'll have Yoda speak, and the grammar structure will be thrown off. So the transformers were able to more efficiently discern that by being able to tell how the words existed and came together into sentences. So long story short is that it could consume larger pieces of data and approach something to much closer to like human-ish understanding. I wouldn't say that they're anything like human in consciousness, but they could better understand larger volumes of data and parse the patterns between them. So those were the two things. So why did it not launch off in 2017? In late 2017, when that paper came out, I think it took about 4.5 years before enough engineers really understood the potential and really started to build out the infrastructure to make ChatGPT. And then the quote unquote hype has been that ChatGPT was released, and now anybody had access to it for free. They took a gander with having $1 billion of funding from Microsoft. Now, most of that was in server tokens, but putting that aside, they had a big investment enough to go mass public. And the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. People didn't know this technology was out there, and so it took that long before it hit mainstream, and here we are.
Yeah, I remember, and this is now I'm not the devil advocate anymore. I am who I am usually. I think I started to see like discussions online, and then I can't remember exactly how I came up with, because at first there was the API of what people knows now as ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
OpenAI, they released a closed beta or closed platform, and at that time, like they put some use cases there, and I was thinking like, okay, this is very interesting. I'm not a coder, but by any mean, but of course I understand. I have the knowledge. Okay, so they did an API that you can give some input and then it gives you some output. That's look interesting. And then, in December or November, I believe, end of November, when they released ChatGPT, right? Oh man, like, like
Yep.
this is something that we never saw before. And now, to your point, Geric, and this is why now I'm not the devil advocate. And I repeated multiple times why it is the moment, because anyone that is familiar with computer science knows that natural language processing, and knows that having ability of a machine to understand a human, like it's like the paramount, I would say, theory, whatever you want problem that everyone wanted to solve. And this breakthrough, because I'm like you, interested in AI from long time. And the key for doing other things with AI, start by letting the machine understand actually what you want. So if I can let a machine understand what I'm thinking about, I can later go and tell the machine to go and do it because it can understand me. Now, taking this from this point, I want to understand from you and for the audience, of course, how this will affect the future of jobs, careers, and our lives from your point of view.
Yeah, I think that there's, as there always is with large amounts of change, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it becomes quite hard to for individuals who haven't been thinking about this stuff to predict what's going to happen next. And I I think that the the two things that I talk with people about who are worried about AI taking their jobs, disrupting their livelihood, is that first of all, AI is not going to replace anybody. It's going to amplify some people to be so hyper productive that they're going to replace people. So in other words, your job's not going to be taken by an AI. It's going to be taken by someone who's using AI better than you.
Yeah.
And so in some industries, they are more constrained by supply than demand. What I mean by that is if if you talk with people in the tech world, we kind of need 10 times more coders than we have right now. Like the constraint has been on the supply side. We want more code. We I would also argue that we want more art in the world, that there are a lot of things that we have taken for granted. The supply and demand curve are where they're at, but give it a few years and we're probably going to really find that the demand has increased exponentially. But of course, there are other roles. One that comes to mind is, I believe McDonald's has recently started testing AI for their for taking orders at drive-throughs and things like that. And so it's like, is that going to increase exponentially as well? There are some historical examples, such as with bank tellers back in the 1980s. When the ATM was introduced, we thought bank tellers were going to go out of business. They were going to drop down by like 1/5 because 4/5 of their time was spent just punching papers and doing things that ATMs can do. But when ATMs were popularized, in fact, bank tellers' jobs did not go down. They actually went up because then the banks wanted to create more banks. They wanted to create more outlets. And so the bank teller job was not affected the way we expected. So I think that there's going to be a lot of surprises in this journey, but by taking advantage of this technology and not seeing it as a race with Silicon Valley, but instead just a race with your industry, as you already were doing. You already were competing with people in your field. Now it's just there's a new tool in the tool belt. That's a much healthier way to look at it. The other piece of advice I give people is that when you are in a state of fear, we know this with neuroscience, that the blood pools away from your neocortex and you're 32% less capable of making creative decisions and higher order executive decisions. And so I really encourage people to, it's real advice to look on the bright side and to get excited for where this technology is going. If you're scared, if you're playing on defense, if you're going on the passive and trying to like weather this out, then you're not going to be at the level that we really need you to be. And so those are generally how I think about most people's tactics for weathering things.
Yeah. On this point, what I would say, like fearing, complaining, I don't know, like all these words that I can think about which are negative, would not change anything. Like even we saw some of the big names, even in Silicon Valley, they signed a paper for stopping, the research on AI. Like some people ask me, what do you think? I said, okay, look, if OpenAI or Google they don't go and make it, someone else will come and make it, because it's matter of, as we call it in the tech world and in the consulting world, you need a proof of concept, right? So you need to proof of concept, and once you have the proof of concept succeeded, so we know we
Yeah.
can do this.
The genie's out of the bottle, so to speak.
Exactly. So if Mehmet will not do it, Geric tomorrow will go and do it. If Geric doesn't do it, someone else will come and do it, because we know that it can work. So collecting, yeah, it's gonna take some time with them, probably. I'm not sure, but with all the processing speed, like building a large language model, yeah, it needs time. It needs all this. It needs resources, but like I believe in 6 months' time we can see another open AI, for example, right? That can do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Have you followed the leak with Llama from the Facebook AI? Have you followed that
Yeah.
story at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So once that, Facebook had their own large language model. They called it Llama, and it was leaked out. Um, but something really interesting which I did not predict, occurred, which is that once it leaked out to the masses, the open source community have taken it and run with it, and they have found
Yes.
certain efficiencies of how to create new large language models with using the Llama framework that are orders of magnitude more efficient. So while it cost $1 billion in processing to create ChatGPT, um, we are now creating new large language models that are as good as GPT-3, not as good as GPT-4 yet, but are as good as GPT-3, which is pretty much good enough. On orders of magnitude less. I think Google came out with this paper, Chinchilla,
Mm-hmm.
which had some of the major breakthroughs that helped the open source community, and then there's a few other breakthroughs they had as well. But at this point, from what I'm seeing is that people with a beefy enough home setup and a few days of downtime can be creating these large language models, which I did not think. I thought the constraint was going to be $500 million on a server farm, but at this point, truly, the genie's outside the bottle. And if anyone's
Exactly.
interested in that, I would suggest the Google paper called, I think it was called "We Have No Moat," and it was a leaked Google document. If you Google "We Have No Moat Google," and neither does OpenAI, you'll see
Mm-hmm.
a leaked Google document that goes into a lot more detail on that.
Yeah. So surprisingly, and this is one an information to give to the audience if you are watching or you are listening to us. So it's my top hit episode actually on the show. It get the highest number of listening, and I didn't put it on YouTube because it was a solo recorded without camera. But everyone started to also ping me about it when I covered Auto GPT, and this
Mm,
is exactly like they used actually the Llama open source, right? So to do
yep.
few things, and it's interesting. Now you mentioned Geric something, and I will ask you this question not from technical perspective, to just also shed some light on the like the future of work that we talked about. Now you always separated between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, right?
Yeah.
The reason is, and I did also a like a review kind of between Bard and GPT-4, and always I repeat myself that to me GPT-4 has the ability, and even if you have access to GPT-4 today, like they I'm not sure if they still show it or not. OpenAI, they show you something like a score for the model. So for example,
Yeah.
GPT 3.5 is fast, GPT-4 like less fast, I mean slower a little bit, and then you have reasoning, right? So the reasoning part. Now, from an AI futurist perspective, like when we say reasoning, we mean someone that has the ability to come up with something that doesn't exist. Would AI be able to do that?
That's a great question. You know,
It's a bit philosophical
yeah.
as well.
I guess bottom line, I would say yes, because we just see how fast we're advancing and how many breakthroughs we're making. Um, how far is that in the future to come up with true creativity? It's hard to say, but I will talk a little bit about what's the gap between where we are and that point. So I think we're going to cross it. We're probably going to cross it this century, but I want to talk a little bit about what that gap is. So um, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it what's 2 plus 2, it will give you the answer 4. But if you ask it a very complex math, or not complex, but a very long math problem, like what's 5,000 trillion 400, so on and so forth, times an equally large ridiculous number. So a math problem that is not very popular online. It will give you a wrong number, and if you punch into a calculator, you will verify that's a wrong number. But the first few digits will be correct.
Mhm.
The last few digits will be correct of the new number.
Yeah.
So what it's doing there is it's recognizing patterns. It's not actually calculating the numbers, and this is kind of a weird thing you have to get your head around. That when you're asking it these questions, it's not reasoning through the problem. It's not calculating it, even though it's a computer. You expect a computer to calculate it for Christ's sake. But it's just recognizing patterns in the internet. So if you ask what's 2 plus 2, it will have millions of examples of people saying 2 plus 2 equals 4. So it knows the answer is 4. But if you ask it a question it hasn't seen before, even a math question that you could reason through with enough time, it will give a wrong answer, but it will get parts of it correct because it has already recognized a pattern that to get the first few digits and the last few digits of a very complex multiplication, it only has to look at the first few and the last few digits of the two what do you call them? Component numbers.
Mhm.
So it is the pattern recognizing has gotten us further than we thought. But it only has the illusion that it actually has a model of reality. So the way that I think about this is that us humans, when we are reasoning through things, we reason things both bottom up, where we have empirical, historical data of what we've seen, and we have examples, but we also think through things top down. You can imagine something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And right now, these technologies, and I would encourage people to play around with this with ChatGPT, is to like actually punch in some of these numbers. It's quite illuminating. What this technology is that it has a illusion of top-down thinking, and it's done that only through bottom up. And so I think that as we are developing better and better technologies for these AIs to have internal simulated versions of reality, so we're creating like these virtual minds, like physics simulations and other things that are a little bit more obeying the laws of physics, so to speak. I think we're going to get closer to an AI that's able to do something a little more top down, and that's going to be quite exciting. I think that's going to be what the next few innovations are. Transformers, they've taken us further than we ever thought they would, but they are going to peak out, and we need a few more innovations, a few new, truly creative new innovations that no one's talking about yet. We need a few more of those before we're really going to crack that problem.
But the question, Geric, is don't you think that always we need someone to punch this, as we call it, prompt? Like who gonna give the prompt to the AI? Is it like another AI that is giving that prompt? How it will work?
So you're asking, in like 100 years from now, what's going to be the process of maximizing AI's utility?
Yeah. Like let me give you a more like straightforward example. So assuming that AI will have the power to come up with completely a new business model or a
Mm-hmm.
completely new piece of software. Let's make it more
Yeah.
simple. Okay. So someone need to tell whatever the model they are using, that I need a software that I believe it should do 1 2 3 4, and then the AI will go and write the code, the AI will do the UI, the AI will
Yeah.
do the UX. But who is giving this ignite to start the process?
Yeah. So if we're talking about AI having greater and greater impact into the real world, so like the idea is you ask ChatGPT, make me $1 million company. So it's based like, find a way to put $1 million in my bank account right now and just make it happen.
Yeah.
And if everybody has access to that, then a lot of things are going to start to break down, at least in terms of like what is the definition of some of these things. Like if
Yeah.
if everybody has infinite money, then money's less valuable, right? And we're still in a physical universe. So what we're aiming for is a post-scarcity civilization
Mm-hmm.
where people are all given enough, and I think that Star Trek vision still is at the heart of a lot of nerds like you and I trying to make the world a better place. But as an AI futurist, when I'm looking at this stuff practically, we need to keep in mind that these technologies are existing in a physical universe, and so if we are asking it questions like, give me comparative power over other humans, like make $1 trillion company,
Mm-hmm.
that if everybody has it, then it won't work. because it's comparative value and the technology is democratized. So then the real game we have to play is like an infinite game where everybody has enough, or B, one person has the only access to super AI, and then they ask it to make $1 trillion thing, and their AI is more powerful, so it works.
Yeah.
So it's one of those two scenarios, and I think that it's a really beautiful thing where we are right now. And I hope it plays out that the philosophy that's underpinning a lot of these companies is that we want to democratize this company. We don't want a few super players to do it. And so that was the idea that OpenAI was founded with. Now, is it still living up to its ideals? I think there's a debate to be had about that. But the principles are still very much in the culture of the open source market, of a lot of people who work at OpenAI. We're all just human beings at the end of the day. And so I think it's really important that we keep that vision and that inspiration and that ideal at the forefront of this movement.
So, but I can
Does that
see
answer your question?
Yes, and I can see, Garrick, like you are on the positive side of the thinkings, right? So you're optimistic.
Yeah, I would say that generally speaking, the realization that's allowed me to be optimistic is to look at the writings of earlier centuries and to see what blind spots that people had when they were so confident, and to see how much better we are off right now, and to see how many of those pessimists were wrong, has I think luckily happened enough times that there's a pattern we can recognize, and that pattern can be extrapolated without just faith. I think that there's questions we need to have about gray goo, and what if it's just a super replicator AI, and et cetera. And I think that there's rational, logical reason to be optimistic even about these more esoteric problems. But fundamentally, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about on many dimensions.
I'm on your side, and just I would say complement what you mentioned, Garrick. Um, I believe AI will, because you touched on that, and you said maybe either we all be in an abundance, and I believe this is the case. I believe all of us will be in abundance. Life will not be the same we are living it now. Of course, it will take maybe hundreds of years. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that it's less. Whereas, because the reason I'm saying this, because if anyone, and we saw live examples, maybe it was like a joke. We saw this guy who went viral on Twitter, and he did something, he called it the hustle GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But guess what? I have people that I know that we follow each other's. Even we were in cohort together, and they did it. I mean, okay, it was a small scale, but they did something, and it get them $500. And they said, okay, let's try to get $5,000. Of course, if now you go and type, okay, I need a side hustle that make me $1 million, it will not work. And actually, ChatGPT will answer you. I think they tweaked something, and they tell you I'm just a language model, and I cannot give you any financial advice. But I mean, this showed us, again, I call it proof of concept, right? So there's something called proof of concept, that yes, AI can generate ideas. Let me give you one more example. And actually, I was planning to do even a demo, or like maybe a walkthrough about it 2 days back. And like you and I, we share this geeky thing. So I looked at my office here. I have a Raspberry Pi, and I have a Arduino
Awesome.
sitting here. And all of a sudden I said, hey, let me go to ChatGPT and ask, give me some cool idea that no one maybe have done it, of course, up to the knowledge that they had up to 2021. And guess what, it gave me really cool ideas, like maybe no one will be interested in, but when I start to read, oh, look at this, like it's suggesting me the idea, suggesting me the components that I need to have, giving me step by step guide. And actually, it's funny enough, it told me at the end, hey, like this is just a fun project, do it yourself kind of thing. Even it
Yeah.
suggested, I said, okay, what can I do? He said, yeah, like you can put it into a website for hobbyists who would like, so you can put these ideas that I'm giving you. I said, okay. So this is the augmentation, guys, that I'm enjoying now. So if you are always thinking, this is gonna take my job, like this will end the world. No, nothing like this. Nothing like this will happen. Actually, you just need to have fun. And actually, I was not very fan of like reels and TikTok and all these things. But now, when you go that side, you see like there are a bunch of people, young people, who actually are getting educated on AI and they are using it somehow either to create content or to do something, which is very, very positive. Now, you wanted to say something and we kept it aside for the use cases, Garrick. Like the most, I mean, close ones that we can see in the near future, like where we're gonna see the changes fast. And when I say fast, we're not talking about years, maybe in the coming 6 to 12 months. And then down the road, how you can break down that to us.
Yeah. So one thing that's going to be coming out very soon is I think we're going to have a lot of companies that are going to be producing better interfaces with with uh, with this technology. So if you start using ChatGPT, not just for fun but actually for your work, you'll often find that the you know the hard part was figuring out how to describe the problem. Who would have thought it? The questions was harder than the answer. You can
Right.
ask it to make a big report, but telling it what to make a report on, who's it for, what's the relevant factors, that's the hard part. So I think we're going to be creating better and better interfaces to reduce the effort of those parts. So there's big communities right now that are trading and selling prompts. They
Yeah.
they call themselves prompt engineers and prompt marketplaces. I think that is just in the very, very early days, and probably will look nothing like a marketplace in the coming years. But I think a lot of people are going to make a pretty penny creating better interfaces. I'm thinking of like Jasper AI and
Oh,
Writer.ai and those tools. It's really just is using ChatGPT on the back end, but they create an interface that makes it easier to extract good copy. That's number one. Number two is that the AIs that are being produced by like Bard with Google and ChatGPT with OpenAI are very general in their knowledge, and a go-to startup is going to be to create a specialized AI that performs very well in a subfield. So think of a legal AI. Right now, that the problem is that AI hallucinates, and you can't have that in a legal profession or a medical profession. So by creating finely tuned AIs that make less mistakes and are less generic, I think a lot of value is going to be added to the market, and a lot of very successful startups are going to be born. I'll tell you one pet project that I'm excited for. I'm excited for a AI that scrapes every piece of text from a variety of, let's call them gurus, like mentors, like Steve Jobs, etc., and
mm,
then creates an AI persona so that you can have a conversation of asking Steve Jobs, "Hey, what would you do?" And it takes every transcript, every conversation from that guy, every interview, and you can have Steve Jobs or anyone as your business mentor. That's an example of an AI that becomes fine tuned and narrowed down with the right data inputted. So those are two. There's a few others, but those are two fundamental lenses I like to put on and advise people to put on when thinking of new companies and new innovations still to be created.
But Garrick, are we going to see like only like for example, historically, it seemed like we are tied to two big names all the time. So it was Apple, Microsoft. I don't know, like we have all these two big names. So here now we have now Microsoft open AI backed by Microsoft
Yeah. All
versus
that.
Google. Are we going to see like this consolidation? And the reason I'm asking you because nowadays, like even new startups are coming up, and there's this famous meme on the internet when they, when they remove the cover, it's like running on top of OpenAI API,
Yep.
or maybe Google still didn't release an API for Bard, but I'm sure they're gonna do that very soon.
Yep.
And the reason why I'm asking you, like, don't you think that actually these two companies will have huge impact and control over any startup that will come in the future, like, and how we can tackle that actually.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that there is a tendency for a lot of companies become, sorry, a lot of industries become duopolies. PlayStation versus Xbox, so on and so forth. And it's the AI wars are really shaping up for Google and Microsoft to be really going head to head. Apple is, because they like to be very insular, are not using the word AI in any of their press releases. They're using words machine learning, transformers, etc., but they're avoiding that word because they don't want to hitch their brand to that. So I think there's going to be a lot of players that are pretty big that are maybe not the center of attention in this. But even more importantly, I want to go back to what we were saying in the middle of today's conversation, which is the open source community with the
Mhm.
innovations from Llama being leaked, and the innovations with Chinchilla and low low input training, which is meaning that this technology is becoming a lot more democratized through developers building custom apps that are not tied at all to either of these big players. So I think that it's very natural for a lot of industries to have duopolies, and I think that we will have something like that, but enough options that we won't find ourselves in some sort of nightmare scenario where a shadow monopoly actually dominates too much. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
have said that even 3 months ago until the realizations from that white paper. Once again, recommend, we have no moat from Google. I would definitely recommend checking that out for more evidence for that.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, things are changing so fast, because what maybe I've said even 1 month back, it doesn't apply anymore. Um, you mentioned something about coding, and I'm interested, like, when we can expect a proper, full-fledged code generated by AI. Because now, the feedback so far that it's not the perfect code. It still need, people to go and check it back. Of course, always this is why we will need, for example, quality engineers, and we need like Q&A and all this stuff. But like, really, like, when you think the AI will be able to generate proper code, um, is it any near future?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. There's not going to be a single moment. I'm not sure if people think of it this way, but I remember when Siri first came out and everybody said it was terrible and they weren't
Yeah.
impressed. And then 5 years later, Siri just works. And then people are like, well, of course it works. It's been around for 5 years. And there was never a moment of like, it's quote unquote arrived. And right now, the Copilot tool that
Mhm.
Microsoft has it's a GitHub product. Already they have noted that I think more than 50% of all code committed in this year has been written with Copilot, which does not mean 50% of developers are using it. It means that 10% of developers that are paying $8 a month are writing 5 times more code than anyone else. Um, so, so really, what we're looking at is still in the beginning stages of, like we said before, people being amplified, not AI taking your job, but people being amplified, becoming more productive. And
Yeah.
I think I think that's really what's going to look like for a decent amount of time, and we're probably pretty far away from the idea of you just typing in, "Hey, make me $1 million, startup." It's just not gonna happen that way. At least while we're constrained by physics. So I think it's a long journey with a lot of little micro milestones, and probably was not gonna. I, as an AI futurist, I'm not hitching um, my planning around that anytime soon.
Okay. Just to put context, and maybe if there's anyone who doesn't understand like how coding works, and to your point, Geric. So when programming languages were created, so they were just, you know putting on top of some assembly language, just for the sake of a programmer to write a piece of software in a human understandable format. And then, with time, the code, grew. I mean, it start to have more libraries that people can reuse. Why I'm mentioning this? The reason I'm mentioning this, because this is remind us of how large language models, if you are today, you are not a geeky guy, you are not a coder. So the way large language models works is they have a huge amount of data sitting somewhere. And then when you go and put the question, like even if you are just saying, hey, give me I don't know, write me an essay about construction business. So it goes search, what information, same as you used to do in the past, or used to go to books and then go to articles and then try to rewrite it in your own way. So this is what AI does. Now, connecting that to code, so actually we have a library of code that AI can understand what it does. So if I go and today say to ChatGPT, I want a function that written in Python. I need to specify, of course, the language. I need a
Yeah.
Python code that goes and, for example, check a website if it's up or down, check how much is the page load speed, and put that into a specific format, output it to a text file, for example, just because we are thinking non-UI now.
Yeah.
So what OpenAI ChatGPT will do, it will go and find, okay, which functions within the programming language with Python can do that. And then it will write it for you. Maybe it's not the ultimate way. What Geric mentioned is that it requires time because they need to train. The more data you have and the more you use it and the more feedback you give, it becomes better because it's what they call a supervised model. So basically, you need to keep giving feedback to it so it can, interact better with you. And just for the sake of the audience here, because I've been using ChatGPT maybe 1 week after it went out. The thing is that because they can collect data, and we know that they can collect data about all our interactions. And I can tell you, even with the same prompt that I used to have 3 months back or 4 months back, if I use the same ones now, I get much better answer because they know better about me and what are my needs. Um, so yeah, like it's amazing. Um,
I
you
want
want
to
to say
share
something, Eric?
one. I want to share one
Yeah, please.
thought just on that point of it learning. We're going to, people talk about prompt engineering becoming a new job description. I think we're going to have a new job description in the future as well, which is, what is it? Large language model optimization, which is the same as SEO and ASO, which
Yes.
is going to be, what if people, you ask, hey, what's a pizza place, or give me a list of 10 pizza places, and you prompt it so often to include mom and pop shop in Atlanta that all of a sudden mom and pop shop Atlanta shows up in more people's queries. Already, I have some friends who are working on this to influence other people's answers to questions by
Oh,
how they train they're training the model. Now, of course, that's going to become an arms race. SEO is still a work in progress. It's a constantly dynamic system. It doesn't really hit equilibrium, so to speak. So like it's just going to be another vector of games to play. But that is going to become another, I believe, industry on top of SEO and on top of prompt engineering and all the future holds.
yeah. On the prompt engineering, before I forget, because you talked about people doing prompts and trading prompts. So actually, this space, guys, if you're thinking to keep this business model, I don't advise you at all, because, and I mentioned this in a previous episode a couple of days back. Um, this is being sorted out by AI itself. So you mentioned Geric, Jasper AI, and
Yep.
Jasper AI, they have a function. So if you missed that episode, I'm repeating it now, and I'm not affiliated with them. I just use them as well. So Jasper AI, they get a really cool function where when you type the prompt, when you type what you want to do, is it like a blog post or whatever, they have a button now, enhance it, enhance. So when you click on enhance, I'll give you a very simple example. If I say I need a tweet, let's make it a little bit more. I need a LinkedIn post about sharing a new product with the market. And when I write this phrase and I hit the enhance button, what Jasper AI would do, it will go change my prompt and to write something like this: you are a marketing specialist in social media, and I want you to write, like, it make it much longer, the way that you
Yeah.
should interact actually with large language models. And when I saw this, I said, what? Like,
Yep.
we don't need to enhance the prompts anymore. I mean, there's an AI that can do this. So as we are coming a little bit
I
to
I
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
there's
go for it.
a lot to be said there. I know we're wrapping up, but I think there's a prompt engineering is definitely going to go through a lot of transformations. Um, Fundamentally, we're still constrained by physics, and then different skill sets put some people in better situations than others. So I think that I don't know if I would say it's wasted effort, but certainly is not going to be anything like what it is right now. I completely agree with that.
100%. Um, One thing I want to ask you, Geric, like maybe people now who are listening to us, they are saying, "Hey, these two guys, what are they, what they are talking about?" But we are interested in AI. We want to get involved in this AI thing. Whether it's like from a career perspective, maybe they want to start a company, or maybe it's just a hobby. So, what advice or resources would you recommend for these individuals?
Yeah. So the thing that I tell everybody who is interested in going to AI is to check out playground dot openai.com, which is
Mm.
where they show off the hidden variables about how their large language model actually accepts inputs. So if you're just doing ChatGPT, you're missing big chunks of story. So I suggest most people who want to get maybe not fully technical, maybe they don't want to code, but they do want to understand the AI on a more intimate level than they would just by playing around with it. To check out playground.openai. And if you're interested in starting a company, my company Valhalla.team is right now looking for partners to start new ventures. Our mission is to be creating AI based SaaS companies to build up and then exit from in 2 to 3 years. So we're looking for partners and businesses. So anyone who wants to can reach out to us. But if you're just starting as a hobbyist, I definitely recommend reading more of the OpenAI documentation and playing with their playground.
Great. It's good that you mentioned this because this is something I ask. So I'm gonna put the website of the company in the episode description, and of course I will put also the profile access to Geric, so you can get in touch with him. Geric, like, this is my famous last question nowadays. What is the question that you wished me to ask you, and how you would answer it?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Um, Mehmet, I felt like you were a fantastic interviewer. Let me just go back to you
Oh,
and compliment.
oh,
This
oh,
was this
thank
has
you.
been a lot of fun, and I decided to go a lot more technical than I normally do with the CTO show, and you were fantastic to talk with and exchange with. So great job.
Oh,
Um, the
thank you. My pleasure.
the question of what I wish you had asked. I think we covered most everything. I don't know what the question would have been. Um, I I love talking about the future of AI. I think there's a lot to be learned from how it's from looking at Darwinian evolution, from looking at how biology has been solving similar problems over billions of years, and how we're now solving similar problems with AI with similar results. So maybe if we do a follow up episode, we'll talk more
Oh,
about that.
sure.
But no, this has been fantastic, Mehmet, and I think we pretty much covered everything that we wanted to.
Okay, great. That I'm really happy, Garrick. Like, I'm really thrilled to have you today on the show, because I think you shed light on a lot of aspects that people have thought, okay, how the future looks like, and from hearing from someone like you, it would be really enlightening for the audience. Thank you very much for being on the show today. And guys, like, as usual, as I end every episode, like, if you have any questions to Garrick or to me, you can reach out to us. For me, you can reach out to me by email, LinkedIn, or Twitter, where I'm the most active. If it's the first time you are watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. We are always having superior content, like great interviews with CEOs, subject matter experts, and you are hearing about all the new technology from AI to emerging technologies and all the rest. And if you are listening on your favorite podcasting platform, also don't forget to leave us a review and also subscribe to the podcast. And if you are interested to be like Geric today, to be a guest, I would love to discuss this with you. Like, this is how actually we are growing the show more and more. And I will be discussing that with you one to one. Of course, we can choose the topic, the format, the time, the date. We can arrange for all of that. And don't forget also to leave us a review. Would appreciate this. And until we meet in next episode, thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mehmet.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.